With the axe. Who's going to win this battle of the lumberjacks? That's coming up next. I'm putting my money on Clayton.
That guy that threw an axe completely over the target, striking a West Point Hellcats marching band member outside of Fox News back in 2015, has been nominated by Donald Trump to be the Secretary of Defense. And unsurprisingly, that's not the dumbest thing about him either.
I don't think I've washed my hands for 10 years. Really, I don't really wash my hands ever.
Help me!
No, I inoculate myself. It's just not, germs are not a real thing. I can't see them. Therefore, they're not real.
So you're becoming immune to all of the
exactly.
bacteria.
I can't get sick. I have a new rule. The more elite the university and advanced that a graduate is, the dumber they are. The less likely I am to trust them. If you went to the Ivy League, prove to me that you have any common sense at all.
You went Ivy League, right?
Yes.
So don't shake hands with Pete Hegseth, and don't bother asking him why he doesn't trust anyone that graduated from Ivy League schools when he, Donald Trump, touts that he graduated from Princeton and has a graduate degree from Harvard. You don't need common sense, intelligence, or your own independent thought when you're tapped to join Trump's cabinet of yes men who now have their sights set on literally making the military his, as promised.
Did you authorize it, sir?
Everybody knows exactly what happened, so... And what I do is I authorize my military.
According to the Wall Street Journal, Trump's transition team is considering the creation of a, quote, warrior board made up of retired senior military personnel to remove generals and admirals found to be, quote, lacking in requisite leadership qualities. Which qualities are those? Well, the draft ordered, which was reviewed by the Journal, does not lay out the criteria for meeting or failing to meet those qualities. And a transition team spokesperson declined to comment on it. But this outside board would clearly bypass the Pentagon's regular system, signaling, as the Journal puts it, that Trump intends to, quote, purge a number of generals and admirals.
Trump is drafting a warrior board with Pete Hegseth as defense secretary, looking to get rid of anyone in leadership that isn't willing to do his bidding, which has included going after Adam Schiff and shooting protesters in the street that interrupted his photo op during his administration. But they're against the politicization of the military and cancel culture somehow.
Essentially, it would bypass a lot of the promotion systems and sort of the regulations at the Pentagon that would require, that would normally be required for something like this to happen. Usually when you want to do something like this en masse, you would go for some sort of workaround to the usual system. And so just gleaning from the little that we knew from the draft executive order that we reviewed, that is probably the likely scenario, is that he sees that this is the best way to kind of tackle what he views as a bigger problem within the ranks of the military, just sort of sweep through and get rid of as many generals as he can who he deems unfit for leadership. They would go after 3- and 4-star generals to try to figure out how they can streamline and better prepare the military to focus on, let's say, their tasks of going to war, protecting the country, and not be bogged down by politics or any other partisan-related things. Now, ironically, there's been criticism against Donald Trump that he has tried to politicize certain branches, certain departments in government, and certainly the military was one of them. This move could potentially do that, and so it sort of works against what they're trying to argue for, which is the politicization of the military.
Just like his petulant and short-sighted promise to deport 11 million people with blind hatred as the basis for the plan, there may really be some national security risks with flooding the military with people willing to follow the orders of a guy that lied to avoid serving.
But beyond that, I was getting calls nonstop from Pentagon officials, retired military yesterday when our story broke, just in terms of the generational impact that something like this could have, where you're going after some of the most experienced members of the military, and presumably in times of war especially, but even in times of peace, you don't want those people to be purged from the ranks of the military, because that experience really goes a long way, especially on battlefields. So, you know, there's a real concern that in purging those senior leaders, you would lose that experience.
And it's all being done because previously loyal and conservative generals placed their sworn commitment to the country over Trump's expectations of loyalty solely to him.
General Mark Milley, the former chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has called Trump, quote, the most dangerous person in the country and a fascist. General Jim Mattis, Trump's former Secretary of Defense, said he tries to divide us and called on Americans to reject those in office who would make a mockery of our Constitution. And General John Kelly, Trump's longest-serving White House Chief of Staff, said Trump acted surprised that the military's leadership was loyal to the Constitution and not loyal to Donald Trump personally.
It's almost like a lot of people simply highlighted the consistent and very loud declarations the president-elect made for years, openly telling anyone willing to listen that he has fascist tendencies, and learned one thing from his first term: eliminate any and all opposition to his desire to petulantly rule without consequence.
This is exactly what we worried about and we warned about Donald Trump, which is that he is going to appoint unqualified loyalists to shape this government into his own personal fiefdom and get revenge on generals and put essentially really unqualified people. I appreciate Mr. Hegseth's service in our armed forces, but being a serviceman, it does not make you qualified to lead the Department of Defense and to have access to our nuclear weapons.
God has used imperfect people forever because we're all imperfect, but what he has withstood is unlike what really any other mortal could understand.
Pete Hegseth is clearly going to do whatever Donald Trump wants him to do. And Donald Trump has made it very clear that he is going to politicize the entire executive branch, the entire federal government, to get revenge and retribution against them. And Pete Hegseth is clearly the pawn in Trump's scheme to do that.
I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
And now that he's letting everyone know that he meant what he said when blind supporters called his dangerous rhetoric just jokes and nothing more than him speaking his mind in a way only Donald Trump does, these supporters of authoritarianism are shifting to openly threaten anyone that's not on board or else. So, are we listening now?
Pete understands this, and you do that by putting on the uniform and actually being out there in the combat theater like Pete Hegseth has. I think he'll get easily confirmed. I dare any Republican senator to vote against him. That is not in their best interest. And we need to get him in place as soon as possible. Relief is on the way. This is exactly what I think America was striving for. And I dare any Republican senator to vote against him. That is not in their best interest.